A couple of observations at the outset. Number one, on the COVID package, which has been negotiated at a $10 billion level, fully paid for, it will require, I think, several amendments in order to get across the floor. So if the majority leader tries to move forward, we'll have to have a discussion about a reasonable amendment process. Second, with regard to the war in Ukraine, it seems to me pretty obvious that efforts to get the UN Security Council involved to suggest that the International Criminal Court should take action are going to have zero impact on Vladimir Putin. He needs to be defeated. The Ukrainians seem to have the ability to defeat him, and we need to make sure that they have all the tools they need to beat him.
The IRS tax filing deadline is just around the corner, and they have made it clear that the American people can expect an unusually miserable filing season this year. In addition to the normal headaches that come with filing taxes, they made a change last year in the child tax credit to make payments on a monthly basis to make the child tax credit advanceable. And in doing so, they have ensured that a lot of working families this year are going to get a hefty tax bill when they file their income tax returns. And so add that to the list of things that are costing the American consumers more, one of which, as we've talked about before, is gasoline. And the administration seems to have one approach when it comes to dealing with the high cost of gasoline. One is to blame everybody else, but two, just tell everybody to drive an electric vehicle, which is an insult to the American people. And the latest idea they've come up with is releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is there for emergencies. They're talking about tapping it for this. And clearly, the only emergency we're facing right now is the lack of supply of energy in this country that's a result of this administration's assault and attack on energy production. And so the only way to fix what is ailing people in this country, and that is high gas prices, is not these gimmicks that the administration continues to come up with, the latest of which is to borrow from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is our emergency again. They have no plan to replace or refill the oil that they plan to take out of it. It will have a very minimal, if any, impact on gas prices in this country. What will impact gas prices in this country is a change in Biden administration policies to encourage energy production companies, those energy producers in this country, to get off the bench and back into the game. And that's simply changing the policies that they have adopted, which were a departure from the policies that were in place during the previous administration, where we had an abundance of energy, so much so that we were actually exporting energy, and America had become energy independent. That's where we need to get to again. It requires an all-of-the-above strategy, and this administration needs to recognize that it's not the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, it's not Putin, it's not gouging, it is their energy policies when it comes to production and when it comes to supply of energy in this country.
And the pain of the pump is real. People across the country this past weekend paid about $2 more per gallon of gas than they did the day that Joe Biden came to the White House. So the president actually gave two energy discussion talks last week. One about releasing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This was his third Hail Mary pass, all of which have been incomplete in terms of trying to lower the cost of gasoline for consumers. I'm expecting more Hail Mary passes all the way through elections, because the fact gas prices this high because of their policies have been a disaster for this administration as well as for the American people who are paying the price. What we need to do is actually produce more oil, more energy, but releasing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve does not produce one single barrel, at a point where we're producing 1.3 million barrels per day fewer than we were in 2019. And some call it a gimmick. I think it's much more dangerous than that, because it's drawing down the Strategic Reserve to the lowest point since 1984. So when you talk about a real emergency coming along the line, we're not going to have the energy there that's needed for that emergency. The American people know what we need to do, and that's produce more American energy. The president refuses to do it. He hasn't held an oil and gas lease sale on public land since he's been president. And even if you have the lease, and he says, well, they're not using the leases, you need to actually get from the government a permission to drill. They haven't given any permission to any of those. There's 4,600 of them today waiting for permission. And if you're able to find energy, you need to move it. They're blocking pipeline permits. So the president has his whole list of people that he's blaming, whether it's Putin, whether it's energy companies, whether it's supply lines, the economy. The American people are not buying it at all. The second speech that he gave related to energy had to do with electric vehicles and had to do with minerals that are needed for electric vehicles. There are many critical minerals for which Russia and China have cornered the market. And yet they won't allow us to mine them here. The president gave a speech about that. There are 13 critical minerals of which we are 100% dependent on others for in this country that are needed for electric vehicles. The president wants to have more and more electric vehicles without the minerals. We talked a little bit about that. But yet he has people who are environmental extremists working in the White House for him. That if you're applying for a permit, it takes about 10 years. You've got to walk through a minefield, all to try to get a permit, which you're going to be very lucky to get 10 years. Oh, Canada's 2 years, Australia's 2 years, the United States 10 years. The president's both speeches were empty words from a president whose tank is also empty.
Really two topics. One, Ukraine. Go to the World Court, you can go to the UN, you can go wherever you want to go, but the World Court of Public Opinion should be pretty solid on what's happening in Ukraine. You know, when people are found with their hands tied behind their backs and a bullet in their head, when there are mass graves of civilians, when the principal targets appear to often be shelters and schools and hospitals, the world understands what's going on here, and they understand that Putin doesn't care. He is in a place where he wants to be successful in this conquest, and it's just possible he won't be. You know, two things are essential in conflict. One is will, and the other is capacity. The Ukrainians clearly have the will to fight back and try to secure their independence from Russian domination, past or future, and we can help them with the capacity. And as leader and others have said, we need to get them what they need as quickly as they need it, and they have the demonstrated will and courage to do the job, and we should honor that by doing all we can to help. And on the other topic, the topic of the COVID supplemental, I think the appropriating committee and the authorizing committee for HHS have looked carefully at this, and they have spent the money. And this is time to remind everybody of the last partisan package on COVID. Less than 10% of the money went to HHS. Less than 10% of the money went into fighting disease. Money went directly to people's houses. Money went directly to families who are now going to face a tax consequence in many cases because of this. Money went to more supplemental unemployment, but somewhere between 6 and 9% of the money went to actually fight the disease. That money is gone, but getting that money replenished is significantly complicated by announcing in the same week that you're going to determine that Section 42 of this effort to fight this disease is no longer necessary because the disease is no longer the same kind of problem it was. It's clearly a big issue with our members. It will be a big issue as these two things are trying to be discussed together, and frankly, together they don't make sense.
In 2019, President Obama's leadership from the Department of Homeland Security called the 1,000 interdictions at our southern border a crisis 1,000 interdictions a day a crisis. That was in 2019. Today, in 2022, our Border Patrol is interdicting 7,000 people illegally crossing a day. What does President Joe Biden have to say about this? Is it not more of a crisis than it was in 2019? Now, the lifting of Title 42 is going to exacerbate this. So it won't be 7,000 a day. What is anticipated is that it will more than double, and we will see 18,000 people trying to cross the border illegally every single day. My home county of Montgomery County in Iowa has roughly 10,000 people. Double that, trying to cross our southern border every single day. This administration needs to get with the program and understand that our southern border is being crossed by more people than we can assist and help at this time. So we need to continue the pressure on the administration. We need to make sure that they are recognizing that if 1,000 people illegally crossing in 2019 was a crisis, we have got an absolute national security disaster on our hands in 2022. So again, we are urging the administration to rethink Title 42 and please secure our southern border.
The Biden administration's decision with regard to COVID defies logic. On one hand, they say they have to have another $10 billion to fight COVID. And on the other hand, they want to get rid of Title 42. Now, you look at the numbers. When Biden got elected, we probably had the most secure border in our lifetime. His first year, 1.7 million people. And now, when he gets rid of Title 42, it'll be over 3 million people. It's not just the number of people that are coming across, but the number of drugs that are coming across. 100,000 people died of drug overdose last year. How many more Americans have to lose their life because of fentanyl coming from China, courtesy of the Mexican cartel, that are going to kill innocent Americans?
Leader McConnell.
Yeah, Chad.
Can you flesh out what you said a little bit about the need for amendments here on the COVID bill, maybe alluding to what Senator Blunt was talking about? Is there going to be an amendment on Title 42 in order to get this COVID bill across the finish line?
Yeah, I think there'll have to be an amendment on Title 42 in order to move the bill. There are several other amendments that we're going to want to offer, and so we'll need to enter into some kind of agreement to process these amendments in order to go forward with the bill.
60 vote threshold or a simple majority?
Senator McConnell, if you're the majority leader next year and there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court, would you commit to allowing a vote on the president's nominee?
You know, I'm not going to go forward with any prediction on what our strategy might be should we become the majority. What I can say with pretty great certainty is the president who ran as a moderate and who is governed as Bernie Sanders would have to spend the last 2 years of his term being a moderate.
Have you seen the Fox here on the Capitol?